Hi everybody, it's Terry Ryder from Hotspotting, and this is my regular weekly feature at this time every Tuesday evening, Hotspot of the Week. One of the things I want to address tonight is this rather annoying and frustrating tendency of media, egged on by economists who, let's face it, know very little about residential property, of generalising about everything, talking about Australia as a single market or talking about each of the major capital cities as one market and publishing a single figure to describe those markets in terms of price movements. Very confusing and extremely unhelpful. It doesn't really tell us anything that's useful about property markets. Earlier this week, BIS Oxford Economics published its forecast for the next 3 years, and again they committed the cardinal sin of generalisation, telling us that which markets they think are going to grow. Nothing in that report worth reading or listening to, because they generalise about vast markets and don't tell us anything about what's happening at the ground level in those markets. We try to do something a little bit different at hotspotting.com.au. Today we published the latest edition of our top 5 regional New South Wales hotspots report, and what it highlights is that there's this point that I make as often as I can, that we have literally hundreds, if not thousands, of different markets around Australia, all doing their own thing, all dictated by local economic conditions. So in regional New South Wales, we have a situation where what's happening in most of the regional centres of New South Wales is in complete and utter contrast to what's happening in Sydney. Sydney clearly has been in downturn for the last 2 years, but at the very same time, many of the markets across regional New South Wales have been rising, doing their own thing, dictated by local economic conditions. The last time we did our quarterly town by town, suburb by suburb survey of sales activity and price trends, we found that 85% of the locations in regional New South Wales have rising prices. They all have median prices higher than they were 12 months ago. So the problem for us in making decisions about what to include in this new edition of top 5 regional New South Wales hotspots is who to leave out. It wasn't a case of how do we find 5 hotspots in the current climate. It was a case of there are so many rising markets, how do we choose only 5? Who do we leave out? One example is Bathurst, where the median price in the last 12 months has risen 10%, again in stark contrast to Sydney, but it didn't make the cut. Neither did Dubbo or Coffs Harbour or Port Macquarie or Byron Bay, and a host of other worthy markets that have been doing pretty well lately across regional New South Wales. One of the places that did make the cut, that is included in our new top 5 regional hotspots report for regional New South Wales, is the very important regional city of Wagga Wagga. Now, all sorts of things are good about Wagga Wagga. It's affordable, it's got a rural lifestyle, lots of job opportunities because it's a substantial regional city with a growth economy and lots of diversity in its economy. Something we always look for, particularly in regional locations. We look for locations that have economic diversity. We don't want a location that's wholly and solely dependent on agriculture or wholly and solely dependent on the mining sector. We want economic diversity, and Wagga Wagga has that. It's a substantial city, current population about 65,000. It's projected to increase to over 80,000 sometime in the next, say, 10 or 12 years. So it's a growth regional city. It has elements of agriculture and its economy, but lots of other things. It's got, it's a major transport hub because it sits at the junction of the Sturt and Olympic highways and very close to the Hume Highway as well. So it's halfway between Sydney and Melbourne. So it's very, very important as a transport hub, a road transport hub. And for that reason, there's a number of major companies have major presence there. The Fonterra Dairy Factory is one. Heinz has a major presence there, Cargill, and the meat processor Tees, which employs over 1,000 people in Wagga Wagga. Its livestock marketing centre is reportedly the largest sheep sale yard anywhere in the world. I don't know if that's true, but that's what our research has shown up. Wagga Wagga is the main regional centre for the Riverina district of New South Wales and also for the Southwest Slopes region. It provides education, health and retail services an area extending from Griffith in the west, Timut in the east, and Cootamundra in the north. So it's a very important regional centre. And if you wonder what I'm looking at, I'm reading from the text of our location report on Wagga Wagga, which you can get a copy of if you go to the Hotspotting website and look under location reports. It's got a strong education economy. It's got a Charles Sturt University campus and also 3 campuses of the Riverina Institute, which is a collection of TAFE institutes headquartered in Wagga Wagga. And the primary industry centre, which exists on 250 hectares at North Wagga Wagga, also runs courses in agriculture and horticulture. So big education economy, but probably the most important strand of their economy is the military economy. It has not only a big RAF base at Forest Hill, but it's also got an Australian Army base at Kapuka. And part of the future prospects for Wagga Wagga is the fact that a lot of money has been spent right now and planned to be spent in the future by the federal government on expanding and upgrading those facilities, which I'll talk about in a little while. The property market's really interesting. The first thing I'll point out about is this, this tendency of generalisation, talking about Australian property prices are falling across Australia. Well, we know that's not true. There's lots of markets with rising prices around Australia right now. And that's been the case for the last couple of years, during which media keeps telling us that prices are falling everywhere. Now, Wagga Wagga is a great example of that. Looking across our report on Wagga Wagga includes data on 2, 4, 6, 8, 10, 12 suburbs which make up the Wagga Wagga metropolitan area. And looking down our list, Lake Albert, the median price is up 13% in the last 12 months. Ashmont's up 11%. Tatton has risen 11%. Gombilin, I'm sorry, I'm not quite sure how to pronounce that, but it's part of the Wagga Wagga market. It's up 8%. So, in stark contrast to what we're hearing about prices falling everywhere, and in stark contrast the capital city, Sydney, there are a number of parts of the number of elements of the Wagga Wagga market where there's been double-digit growth in their prices in the last 12 months. Now, another important factor is affordability. There are suburbs with median prices in the low to mid 200,000s. There are a number of other suburbs with median prices somewhere in the 300,000s, and there's a couple of places that are a little bit more expensive. Central Wagga Wagga's got a median price of about 400,000, as does Birkeland's, and Tatton has a median house price above 500,000. So there's quite a range. It's a substantial regional city, so there's quite a range in prices depending on which area. But the important thing is that, firstly, that there's been considerable price growth, and there continues to be, as this is a growth market, one that's showing good sales activity. Another factor that's attractive for property investors is that the rental yields are strong. In many of the suburbs, the median rental yields are around 5.5%, and there's a couple where the median rental yields are around 6.5%, which is pretty attractive compared to what you can get in the major cities. So once again, I keep referring to good parts of regional Australia as being a win-win-win situation for property investors, because the first win is very affordable prices, as is offered by the various elements of the Wagga Wagga market. The second win is much higher rental yields than you can get in capital cities. And the third win is the prospects for capital growth. And as I've just illustrated, we've seen in a number of the elements of the Wagga Wagga market double-digit growth in their median prices in the last 12 months, and their prices continue to grow. Now, the most important part always for the places that we focus on as hotspots is the future. What's coming up in the future is far more important than the present or the recent past. So the Regional Australia Institute has named Wagga Wagga as an economic powerhouse because it attracts people and it generates jobs. And it does that because it's got a strong and growing community and economy. It's affordable, and there's lots of different elements to the economy, of lots of prospects for jobs for people who move there. As I mentioned, the Defence Force is a major part of the economy. It also brings in tourism, including relatives visiting Wagga Wagga when there's graduation ceremonies at either the RAF base or the Army base. But the main important thing in terms of the future is that there is major spending underway in both these defence facilities. There's $450 million currently being spent. Sorry, I'll just go back. What's proposed to be spent, firstly, in the Army Recruit Training Centre at Kapooka, $400 million on upgrades, and it's part of a $1 billion spending on these facilities over several years. The RAF base at Wagga has also got $400 million proposed to be spent on it. With the Army Recruit Training Centre, there's 2 phases. The second phase will be a further $150 million to be spent. So that's coming up in the future for Wagga. Well, what's happening in the present is a $450 million upgrade of the Wagga Wagga Rural Referral Hospital, a 3-stage project, of which stages 1 and 2 are finished, and stage 3 is happening. There's also a lot of money being spent right now on the Riverina Intermodal Freight and Logistics Hub at Bowman, which is part of Wagga Wagga. $60 million being spent. That's now under construction. There's a whole lot of other things, small to medium-sized projects that are infrastructural, property developments, or medical facilities. It's really a very, very busy economy, a very, very busy regional city. Lots is happening now and in its future. And that's one of the reasons why we've included it in our new edition of our top 5 Regional New South Wales Hotspots report. There's a couple of alternative energy projects also underway or proposed for the future. One of them is a $1 billion project. That's the Yarby Solar Project. The Bowman's Solar Farm, $165 million project, is currently under construction, and there are a number of others, all in that alternative energy sphere. So that's another strand, another emerging strand to the diversified economy, which is Wagga Wagga. So I think it's a really good place for investors to consider. Not everyone can afford to buy in Sydney and Melbourne, or even in some of the smaller and less expensive capital cities like Brisbane and Adelaide. But people in that category have lots of options, and many of those options are in regional Australia, and that's not a bad thing, because right now that's where many of the growth markets across Australia can now be found. Many of them are in regional New South Wales. And as I said, we've published today the new edition of our top 5 Regional New South Wales Hotspots report. Wagga Wagga is included because I think it's a really important part of the New South Wales economy, and a location that's worth considering for its affordability, its really good rental yields, and its prospects for growth, which are happening right now. So that's it for now. That's Hotspot of the Week. If you'd like to know more, you can go to the hotspotting.com.au website and get a copy of the Wagga Wagga report. But if you'd like to know more about our top 5 Regional New South Wales report, you can also get that on the Hotspotting website. That's it for now. Terry Ryder signing off. Let's do it again soon.